Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 5 podcast. This week, we have a new guest. It's a clinical clownophile. You might know him on Instagram. Dude is uh, loving that irony anime posting. Uh, hello. Glad to have you on the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. I I don't really do much with my account. I just shitpost, so don't bother following it.
Yep, that seems to be all of us usually. But anyway, this week we're going to be discussing a really cool topic. I think we're going to be talking about the evolution of cute girls doing cute things, and that specific genre surrounding it. And the reason we're doing it is because interest usually arises in the evolution of how this genre came to be and why we value certain things over what used to be. And so that's where we essentially will start. So, what I think is the core of cute girls doing cute things shows. Essentially, it used to be along the lines of character development and focus on the characters overall and in general. But recent times have shown that it's more so trying to create cute moments instead of cute, memorable characters. And it doesn't even matter about the characters anymore. Essentially, you can have anyone can draw up a cute character in a second, but the focus has shifted to just creating moments of cuteness rather than characters that resemble cuteness.
Yeah, I've heard that complaint quite a lot actually, with more recent shows where they're just pretty much what people like to call moe blobs, where they're just like mindless shows where not really much is going on at all. Like, I haven't really watched too much that is considered bad for the genre, but I guess an example would be Comic Girls, where like most of it is just cute moments and then stuffing in some plot in the final episode to pretend it's sort of like it's a bit more deep than it is,
Yeah,
like a lot of
I tend
shows do.
to see that in a lot of newer shows. I probably watch more cute girl shows because I watch usually all the seasonals that come out, and from what I've seen, it's becoming a common trend where the industry is leaning in this type of direction, and I really don't blame them, to be honest, because it's more approachable, I think, as a marketing standpoint, to just have a good show rather than characters, because it's easier to talk about a show being like good rather than saying, oh, this show has good characters. I don't know if you agree with me on that one. But I think that you know
I mean, kind of like I guess it's harder to analyze characters properly than just having an overall opinion of the show. Like a lot of the characters are very basic archetypes, which usually when it came to stuff like K-On, there'd be a lot more depth like with that. But more recently, they've just gone for the baseline of a character and just went from there. For at least for less decent shows.
recently I actually just watched like this cute girl show where they're all in a magical academy and stuff like that. And like they're not even trying to appeal for connection to the setting anymore because like it's this season too. I'm pretty sure it's called it's just a seasonal show, and what they do is they have a bunch of cute girls, and they're in a magical academy in a isekai type city setting. But all the girls look completely out of place. This show is called Lapis Relights. In case you want to just check out the art, I don't recommend watching it, but in the
Okay.
first episode, like you could tell the focus was more so on creating like an aura of cuteness and like an aura of approachability for new viewers and stuff like that, rather than immediately establishing like a setting that makes sense and characters that make sense in that setting. And you can tell they're not taking a lot of effort to really hammer like any specifics and depth to anything in the first episode. Well, I mean, it's not really necessary in the first episode, but I think you get it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just marketability. Like a lot of companies these days just really need the profit to actually be able to keep running, and the genres are very good for that. Just because you don't really have to put much effort into a story, you just make cute characters and you sorted.
Yeah, and it's like one of the major things I always see like arising as a common trend is that these shows kind of thrive off of simplicity, and like I don't think that the genre has ever tried to evolve past that. That's why it's straggling in recent times, and it's not as appealing as it was back then because shonen is a lot more appealing as a more approachable medium than slice of life to general audiences, of course.
I mean, I suppose like KyoAni's always been making at least as interesting as you can get for slice of life. Like, I mean, sorry, cute girls doing cute things. Like you
It's
have
essentially the same. You just refer to it as the same thing, but
Hibi
it's
Hibike
not.
and like Dragon Maid, about as original as you can get with the genre.
Yeah, but you expect a seal of quality from KyoAni. I'm talking about like on a broad scale. It's just not like you don't get that type of quality from other studios like I don't know, JC Staff. They try to dip their toes into slice of life once in a while. I don't think they make great shows, but I think Doga Kobo's in the right direction. Except they're more focused on like um, making a ton of different shows with different, like they're just trying out a bunch of different crazy things. Like last season, they did an asteroid show, which I thought was kind of weird.
I mean, they're much more based around comedy anyway, as a studio anyway. Like they've
Yeah,
like the first big thing they released was Yuri Yuri, which is just blatantly like a comedy first and like a cute girls show second.
I think they kind of strive on idiotic type of comedy though, because
Oh,
you
definitely.
know, idiotic comedy is a kind of a hard thing to nail, especially today where you just get a bunch of same tropes repeated over and over again. I mean, I just watched. I mean, even though it's not a cute girl show, it's sort of like a harem. I don't know, Toradora. Um,
Oh,
I don't really like it. I watched the first 3 episodes just recently, and
I
I
don't think
kind
I've
of
seen that.
hated it. Like, you know, it's cute girls, sorta, but I don't know. You ever watched Toradora?
No, I haven't. It just looked like a romance anime to me, so I didn't bother with it.
It's sort of a romance anime. It's more slice of life, but that's not even cute girls doing cute things, so I don't even think it's worth bringing up that much. But um, you can tell from the focus of like other studios that try to dip their toes in the genre, it just gets kind of confusing on where to start and where to end on what do I take seriously and what do I not take seriously as what defines the genre now. Because I don't know how to define the genre now.
I mean, like the genre's never really been too tight of a thing anyway. It's just been something like more to relax to. Like even like the I watched recently Azumanga Daioh. I haven't finished it yet, but
I just watched the first
it's like
episode for the because you told me
commonly
about it.
known.
Yeah,
It's like the fucking first one, and like even then, it's not really like too focused on the cute aspect. It's a lot more just focused on being like a very comfortable brain mush show. Like, a lot of the jokes are still very good, and the character archetypes you actually see them a lot even today.
yeah.
It's like
I mean,
with
the
like the
genre,
tough
yeah,
person being
hasn't
a
really
nerd.
evolved that much, so there's not a lot to like look forward to in terms of what comes next, and I think that takes away from like the sort of appeal of the process of making one too, because like I don't think anyone who works on a cute girls doing cute things show like genuinely thinks that they're doing something bold and like creative to the maximum when they make it now. It's just like we're making another one. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, recently there's I think to actually make something more original or unique, a lot of them usually just base it around having a different kind of plot to what is usual. Like with A Place Further Than the Universe, it's about going to Antarctica, which obviously hasn't really been done before in the genre. And then girls just be cute around that.
Yeah,
Or
but you get confused on like, am I supposed to take the show seriously? Because people say it's a serious. Some people tell me it's a serious show, and it's not much of a like, slice of life type of thing, which I don't really. I mean, I can see it in like the elements of how they try to direct the show, but in a show like that, I think comedy should be a lot more prevalent because like it just seems like a I don't know how to explain it. I kind of
I mean,
forgot what I criticized it before, like earlier.
I guess they put more effort into the structure of the show. Like there's a very clear beginning, middle, and end compared to most others.
Okay,
But
so it's more
like
linear.
all the characters are still like, I mean, you could compare them to like a lot of the K-On cast really, but just like slightly more bland.
Oh yeah, well, I think some of them are just pure replicas of the straight man, the energetic uh, tomboy character and stuff like that. I mean, those are kind of
Yeah,
common, but they're done especially similar to K-On! In A Place Further in the Universe, which I don't really think is that interesting because I've already seen it explained before. But you know, producers tend to want to portray characters in certain ways, especially if it is profitable. Like for instance, like in Azumanga Daioh, you can clearly see that they want to portray them as lighthearted as possible, but also like I don't know if you'd consider them memorable, but they definitely have like you can tell which characters are which type of characters.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like they would be a lot more memorable because a lot of the characters, I mean, they're not exactly more deep, but they definitely appear more human. Like
Yeah.
the flaws are a lot more pronounced, like as usual stuff people would have with the teacher character is very competitive and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like actually I can't really like with the way they design the characters, you can't really pin them on any like one specific trope. They could be like an array of things. While like characters today, producers will specifically design a character to like portray a specific trait, like tsundere, just a pure tsundere character or a pure kudere character, or yandere is not that common anymore, but it was a while back,
I
which
think
is
like
like simplification. Yeah.
for the genre to become like more significant these days, they're probably just gonna have to go back to focusing more on having like unique plot lines along with the cute girls being more like a complementary aspect of the show rather than the main thing, since that's sort of just been wrung out of anything else that you can do with it at this point.
Yeah, but plot lines are kind of difficult to imagine in shows like these because if you add plot and add like a narrative, you're kind of just sh- treading the line between is this really gonna be just your average slice of life show, or
I mean,
I
it
don't know.
doesn't need to be too much of a narrative. Like with recent ones that I can think of, like Hitori Bochi, where the narrative is just someone trying to become more confident, or with Demon Girl Next Door, where it's just well, like a similar concept, but someone turning into a demon and all that.
That
It
sounds
doesn't
more like a
exactly need
character
to.
study though, or like a
I mean,
character development type of thing. It's not much of a like overarching narrative.
I guess, but I mean, just more something that they can actually follow through as the show goes on. So, like, there is progression for people to follow more clearly.
I think a like example of an overarching narrative done correctly is through Gakugurashi, because like it takes place from the very start. You in the first episode, you get to find out that the show actually takes place in the zombie apocalypse, which is pretty weird for a cute girls show. I mean, some shows try to put cute girls in a zombie apocalypse, but never done right. And there's actually a narrative you can follow in the show, which is actually more interesting than it sounds, especially in cute girls genre. And I think moving towards like actually creating a overarching narrative can help you build characters a lot better because I felt a lot more involved in uh, the characters' backstories and stuff like that because I usually hate seeing a bunch of exposition dumps and backstories because they're just annoying. But through a narrative, you can actually achieve something and a connection to more characters, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose the overarching plot isn't too necessary when it comes to it, though. If you still just make the show really good, like Eurocamp was one that's came out only like a year ago, but it's probably one of the most popular of the genre already. So I think, I mean, I guess that one actually still has like progression, like with the main girl Shimarin becoming, I guess, getting friends and all that. But it's nothing really like you said with the what's it? What's its English title? School Live, where there's actually like a plot to follow.
Yeah.
So I think if the characters are good enough, that can still carry the show on its own. But I think for the average like creator, you're probably better off focusing on having some sort of plot to follow.
I think it's really good to talk about like why the genre is shifting overall because of consumer culture and how that is influencing why these shows are being made. Because a lot of people actually like this new type of cute girl shows, and they're influencing more studios' approach to creating these shows and the way consumers want to shape it because it's marketable and it's profitable if the base of people really like this new type of de-emphasis on characters and more on just rapid punches of just content or comedy content, I suppose.
I guess that's the same with a lot of genres. Like, if people are going to get lazy, then they're not really going to put too much depth into characters because that usually takes more talent in writing to be able to do properly. But it isn't like the most important thing in this genre anyway to actually have a lot of depth with your characters. Like, I mean,
It's not really important, but it might help to make it more memorable and create a
like
classic.
stuff like Yuri Yuri is like probably I'd actually almost definitely considered a classic for the genre, but none of the characters really develop much over the show. They're all just the same. Just relies on the jokes quite a lot, which are actually very strong for most of the show, personally.
And I think that shows like Yuri Yuri really take into account like the most popular factors of the genre and really thrive off. I think they take a factor of the genre and then take the idea as far as possible so that it can create the most payoff as possible, which is better than having build up and then no payoff, of course, which is probably the most common thing that happens these days.
Yeah, I think like as long as this show has at least like one main strength that they focus on, whether it be like plotline or characters or just comedy, as long as they have a focus on that, it's probably more likely to be successful than if they just try and make it a cute moment show for YouTube and
What
marketing.
Why do you think studios are not trying to make classics anymore? Like other than profitability and marketability, why do you think that people? Because some studios in Japan, like Madhouse, just don't care what the people say and they just make whatever they want. Like I don't really understand.
Uh, I mean, except for money, I guess it's a lot more risky having like directors just spend a lot of time making these sort of bigger things for them just to sort of just be as popular as the next show. So in that way, it's a bit of a risk, especially for a genre like this, where it's hard to properly like have a show be different from the rest.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone can have the freedom to direct as creatively as they want, like Eki Kishimbo or Masaki Yuasa. They've got bills to pay, and we're the one paying them. And if they're not satisfying us, that's pretty much the bottom line. But maybe there's like an overarching theme we're just missing that most studios just can't latch themselves to. creating more classic products and instead just create repetitive things that further a theme of mediocrity in the industry. I just can't put my finger on what it is they might find displeasing.
I mean, I think when it comes down to it, it is probably like mostly just money in the end because I mean everything like I guess during like pre 2000s, while a lot of it is, I mean, there's probably like the same proportion as bad stuff to good stuff. There was a lot more like unique stuff being done, and people really like trying to make something unique with like OVAs and stuff just being pumped out all the time. Even if they were kind of crap, they were at least still like quite. You can tell they tried when they were making it. Like there was
I
much more of a
mean,
vision going on.
yeah, a lot of studios do try to make a as good as possible product, but they're working with some pretty crappy material. Since all they do is probably just take it from a light novel. But I really, what do you think the most popular factors of the genre are now? I think like the most popular factor is, um, obviously the jokes and how hard they hit, because that kind of defines whether someone wants to keep watching a show or not.
I mean, as of now, it's probably characters, since I see that as like the main reason a lot of people are drawn to these shows. Like,
Really?
well, not like I mean, like character designs with I guess in Dragon Maid, like you have Kana and Toru. Like everyone who's been in the like community sort of knows these character designs just because they're thrown around so often in memes. So
I
a
mean,
lot
I,
of
I
people are
kind of
more
disagree
likely to
with that.
watch
I
these.
think characters aren't as valued as you think they are, because like if you watch a lot of shows recent, or like if you just constantly watch seasonal shows and stuff like that, I honestly don't think characters that matter that much to people, because they're just there for the content instead of the designs and stuff like that. They could care less. That's what I pose.
Well, it's not more that I mean they actually care about the characters, like as in the personalities. I just mean as in like the straight up designs will pull people
Yeah,
in first to watch the shows.
I don't think people care about that. I think people care about just the content of it rather than the designs or any characters being like cute or anything. They don't care anymore.
Guess that's just the difference. I mean, that's how I got into the genre anyway. So I don't know how other people would have done.
I mean, I'm just assuming here that people don't really care about character designs anymore, which I think is attributed to characters being designed weaker and less interesting recently. Because why put the effort into design a better character if people don't care about it? So that's kind of my viewpoint of why I think people don't care about characters and how it's shown through the industry. You can clearly see the correlation there.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, people don't really ever mention stuff that hasn't really come out in the past like few years from the genre, like since 2018 or so. People just really throw clips in of older shows and
Yeah.
stuff that's already been fully released. Like I see barely anything of like more recent shows unless it's like a shonen or something.
Like,
Especially with the cute girls genre.
you only see memes usually. You just see memes of recent shows, and that's about it. Even that's scarce. You just see older memes. Like I remember, I still see Blend S memes after all this time, which is kind of just weird. I kind
Yeah,
of want to see new shows.
like, I still see K-On stuff pretty much every day though. Like just around. Like it's clearly there's something about these shows that people still care about and would watch, but recently there hasn't been anything I guess that could be too unique or interesting for people to actually latch onto.
What do you think about shifting back to way the things were back then? Is it a good or bad idea?
What do you mean by that? Like what the
So
way
like
things were?
you know content these days in the cute girl genre is stale, and we both know it. Do you think that the industry, if let's just say this is a theoretical context, if we could shift the entire industry to going back to making shows like they used to be, do you think that's a good or bad idea?
Uh, I suppose it would be a good idea since back then. before the genre was really big, a lot less of the focus was purely just on them being cute because that wasn't really too defined yet and seen as too profitable before stuff like K-On! And Yuri Yuri came out. Like a lot of shows would still try and have something along with it to try and market itself and appeal, or it could, or it's just a lot more. I guess it casts more of a broad net of the characters than just like being specifically cute. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. I just personally think it would be a bad idea, honestly. And my reasoning is mostly attributed to uh, through the years, you can see a distinct shift and evolution of the genre. And I think that staying in a stale state of the genre, even though it is stale right now, you can still see a direct correlation or a direct timeline, I should say, of how the genre has evolved over time. And to just have a constant, uh, stream of the same type of content, I think would make that good content back then just as stale as it is now.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, like I said, I can't really see anything recently that has been popular except maybe like Hitori Bochi and and Demon Girl Next Door. Like except for those two, there's been pretty much nothing that has been talked about in the genre. So I guess it's I'm not sure.
Um, it's kind of just you talk. We talk about this stuff because it kind of matters in the end. Like when we look over this genre in like 5 years, maybe it'll shift again, and this time it'll be better. But who are we to say it's better? The content now could be good, and we just don't realize it compared to then, of course. But we only time can tell really of how we approach the ultimatum of this genre because eventually it'll die just like mecha genre is kind of dying at the moment. You don't
Yeah,
see anybody watching the mecha genre.
I mean, it might just be because we're in the middle of it right now. Anyway, like most genres are just like 90% shows that people will never watch 6 months down the line, and there's only usually like maybe like one or two things that come out a season, regardless of genre, that are actually worth watching later on. Like for most people, anyway, a lot of it is just marketing or yeah, just stuff that would be for profit. So it might not be that the genre is getting worse, and more that we're just watching all that. We're just able to actually see all the bad shows that are currently coming out, and we aren't seeing the ones that came out before because there's no incentive to watch them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know any old guard anime fans that specifically specialize in cute girl shows. And if you did know one, like I would wonder what they would say about how the genre has evolved. Because if they truly like watched a bunch of cute girl shows back all the way from the '90s to like late 2000s, and then compared it to now, I'd be interested to see if they said it was more stale then or more stale now because of the quality of product that was coming out back then in the '90s. Some of the stuff in the '90s is just unbearable to watch.
Yeah, like even out of the good stuff, a lot of it, at least animation wise, is very bare bones and just like they do the minimum of what they need and then focus the rest on writing and voice acting, since that's a lot cheaper to actually have to a high standard. So, like, I suppose more recently, like the focus you could probably argue has been more on the animation, like with the art style, all kind while kind of being sameish, they all still have quite a bit of effort in them. I mean, some
That's
of them
a
still
pretty
just
good
have
topic.
lazy
We
background.
could talk about visuals of why or how it's changed over time. I think that's a pretty good starting point.
Uh, I suppose to talk about KyoAni in particular for that, because I mean, while they are the staple of the genre, so they might not be too interesting to talk about. Like the reason they are the staple is because they did start out with stuff like K-On! And I guess you could argue, what is it called?
Haruhi.
Yeah, Harry here. Like those show. I mean, Haruhi wasn't too much of a cute girl show anyway, but it got really popular because it had interesting characters and quite a good plot line.
Yeah, I mean, Kyoani is just kind of the god of cute girl shows and slice of life in general. But I mean, they pretty much defined the every single major shift in art style to come in the anime industry, and especially in moe genre, of course. When you're talking about moe and you don't include Kyoani, I'm pretty sure the argument just turns into really poopy one.
Mm.
Um, you know, visual wise, like I don't really enjoy a lot of early 2000s visuals compared to now. I think actually now visuals are a lot more better because of how clean they are. Even though it's a lot more simple in design and stuff like that, it's a lot more clean to look at.
I mean, I'd argue, like, as far as innovation towards design goes, I'd say Doga Kobo is probably a lot more influential in that regard anyway, because they've sort of just perfected, like, pumping out a show every season while still having, like, a decent uh,
Quality of product.
aesthetic,
Yeah.
which which companies would aspire more to than what KyoAni does, which is make really quality products, like, once a year or so.
I mean, yeah. Well, what do you think is Doga Kobo's main visual definer, though? I can't think of a single show that really like has a defining visual art style that I would immediately recognize.
Well, it's not that like they're definable, but they're a lot more easy to like replicate. Like it's just before, like the focuses was just on having characters having like eyes about half the size of their head, where now they're just more like sort of like puddings, little circle things with kind of normal proportions in the face, which a lot of studios just follow because it just generally
Makes
it's
things
easy to make
easier.
it look more
Yeah.
cute rather than like
Yeah. It's a
a lot of
shame. I
KyoAni
don't really
stuff.
like that art style, to be honest.
I mean, I don't mind it, but it's serviceable, I guess. Like, it works for what it needs to do.
What were you gonna say about KyoAni?
Yeah, a lot of the designs in in a lot of their shows. I mean, if you ignore stuff like Dragon Maid, usually have a bit more realism in their design than most other anime. Like, especially like the effort that they put into the backgrounds. Like the world building in those shows are incredible, which is kind of hard to follow if you want to make something every season to actually be profitable for most studios.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just kind of hard to like put a finger on like what does the cute girl genre really even need a defining art style? I don't even think that it really does. It just needs to be clean and like uh you know portray the girls in the best light possible, I suppose.
I guess it's just the art style that gets the most money in the end. Like that's probably what people are caring about right now, or at least for most, I guess, the lesser known studios. Is probably what they're more interested in, just having the more recognizable art style, so it's easier for people to get into the show rather than doing their own thing.
Okay. Well, that's about a good time to call this a day. Any last thoughts you have on, you know, visuals?
Uh, Not really. I mean, I guess nah.
I guess we can just conclude with this. The cute girls genre is stagnant. It's pretty much reached a point of. It's not at a low point per se. It's just stagnant on a widespread scale in the industry, and it's not really taking any strides to be groundbreaking or anything above average usually. I mean, some shows like Dragon Maid obviously take the extra step to do that, but unfortunately, the director passed away, so maybe the next season won't be as good as the last, but who knows? Only time can tell. It's just kind of sad to see such a beloved genre, especially to people like us who value like more staples, classic staples of the medium a lot more. I consider the cute girls genre to be more a staple to me than drama or you know even shonen for that matter. Even though I've watched shonen the most, it's just sad to see its descent over the recent years.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's easily the staple genre that I've watched. It's the Dragon Maid was the first anime I watched that actually got me into the whole community and actually watching shows. So just following that trend, like cute girls in general, has been like the main genre of shows that I've been watching. So to see it kind of just peter out and not really have anything worth watching recently is a bit sad, I guess.
Sad indeed, and there's really nothing we can do about it. Studios run the industry like a workhorse, and they're not going to stop to think because if they stop, they're probably going to lose $100 every second they stop. So here's to hoping, I suppose, that the industry improves. But
I guess
you know,
best we can do is buy the Blu-rays for the shows we care about because that's what the studios care about in the end.
yeah.
So it's probably the only way you can make a big difference.
Anyhow, thanks a lot for tuning into this week's podcast.
Thank you for
I'm
having me.
yeah. Thank you, Clinical Clownophile, for attending this occasion.
Honk.
Yeah, Pagu. Uh, and a quick note on a new video coming. I'm almost done, and I'm in the process of getting a new video, like an actual analysis video out. This has been a 10-week process of re-editing and editing the script with a editor who's doing the video for me. But we've had to go through a lot of toil to make this script and video look really nice. And hope you can look forward to that. It's been a long time in the works. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.
See ya.